Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Anaya. Thank you so much for joining me for the Women's Eye podcast, where you will meet fascinating women who are leaving their mark, making a difference, and changing lives. This episode is brought to you by Casco Financial Group in Phoenix, Arizona. Catherine Scrivano is the president of Casco Financial Group. She founded her business to help people create the financial strength needed for achieving their dreams. My guest today is a CEO, professional speaker, tech investor, best-selling author, trainer, and entrepreneur, Susan Sly. Welcome to the Women's Eye podcast.
Well, Catherine, thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful to be here, and it's always fun collaborating with you.
Thank you so much. And you are truly a Wonder Woman, always busy. So I appreciate you offering your time to talk with me because I love talking to women who are making a difference and empowering women every single day. And you are one of those people. I just want to start by getting into your business. So you are at the top of your game right now, self-made millionaire. What does that game look like? I mentioned a lot of different titles, but when I say you are this supreme successful person, is that the sum of many different ventures, or do you primarily focus your business in one area?
Yeah, it's a great question. So right now I'm wearing three hats, and I think a lot of women wear multiple hats, whether it's mom, daughter to aging parents, whatever those roles are, and homeschool teacher is what I recently on. So I gave up school bus driver, and now I'm, homeschool teacher. But so we are very fortunate. I am a co-founder and co-CEO of an artificial intelligence company that is based in Silicon Valley in Phoenix. We focus on human-centric AI, and right now we're working really long days, Catherine. We have a product that we are launching that will actually do fever detection, mask detection, hand sanitization compliance, real-time social distance nudging, all in a kiosk. And that product is coming out in the next 4 weeks. So to help people get back to work. And so we're very excited about that. I also own a digital marketing agency here in Phoenix. We specialize in helping people who do side hustles. So think about the music teacher who was previously teaching face-to-face and now is figuring out how to teach virtually. So we set them up with their digital marketing, their online platforms. And then I have another business in the nutrition world. And I think that's all my capability for business right now.
And you are a super mom, a mom of 5, I should mention.
Yes, and my 23-year-old, when she moved home because of COVID, brought a new kitten. So now we have 2 cats and dogs here at the house. I don't want to see any more pets. The bunnies in the backyard are about as close as they'll get.
Well, you are truly a superwoman. And one of the things I love so much about you is that you have these empowering messages for women throughout your businesses and on your various platforms. You have your own personal story that you like to share too about reaching success, losing it, and then turning your life around, which I think is especially meaningful for a lot of women right now to hear, women who have maybe suffered in some way, shape, or form because of COVID-19. So can you just tell us a little bit about what happened in 2000 that took you from success to your rock bottom place?
Yeah, absolutely. As women, it's very interesting how we perceive the world. And so one of my favorite things to say is that, in the face of challenge, we can either give up or get better. And a lot of times as women, we will wear certain scarlet letters. So Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote the book, The Scarlet Letter. And when I wrote my book, The Have It All Woman, which was endorsed by Jack Canfield and Dr. John Gray, I wrote it in 2007. It was about these scarlet letters we wear. So some of us have been divorced and we just continue to wear the D. Some of us were diagnosed with an illness, cancer, we had a heart attack, MS, whatever it was, and we wear the I for illness. We wear maybe we're laid off right now because of COVID. And so we wear an L for laid off. And suddenly these letters, Catherine, get so heavy around our neck that we just can't even breathe. And we feel like we're going through life suffocating. And back in the late 1990s, from all optics, I seem to have it all. So I was on radio, I was on television, I drove a Mercedes, I had the Louis Vuitton handbag, I got free meals in restaurants, I owned a business, I was a college professor, I was a professional athlete. And I was that person who a lot of people looked up to. And I bought into the delusion that having it all meant doing it all. So I worked a lot of times 7 days a week, 16-hour days. And eventually that caught up with me. And I chose to ignore all of the signals that my body was sending me. So the starting to drop things, the numbness and tingling, the foggy mind, the poor vision. Suddenly my vision would just go in and out. And when I was finally diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in January of 2000, it was devastating. I was diagnosed with the worst kind, progressive, and my doctor said, in a case like this, you are more than likely to be in a wheelchair in 10 years and dead in 20. And I went through all of the stages of grief. I was shocked. I was angry. I was disappointed. 3 days later, I was on, remember old computers? They looked like as big as riding lawnmowers, and they were huge.
Yes.
And I was on one of
Boxes.
those, and yeah, they were slow. And I was, I was looking for MS and just exploring it. And then a chat came up and it said, "Hey baby." And I was like, "What is this?" And I clicked on it, and I found out that my then husband was having an affair. And, my heart goes out to him, because I think that, in any relationship that, imperfect people do imperfect things, and no one is perfect. And so, there's a lot of healing that's gone on, and I send love to him. But that was how he dealt with the stress. How I dealt with the stress was my body breaking down. And then 16 weeks later, we lost that business. And then I became homeless. And there was a point I had $300, a leased car. It was a gold Toyota Camry. It was super flashy. And I had to put my life together from not just zero, but less than zero. I made a vow to pay off all of the creditors from my business. And that was in 2000. And it was, anyone who's going through a tough time right now, you don't know where your rent is coming from. You don't know where your mortgage is coming from. You don't even know if you can just go on another day. I've been there. And I would just say to anyone going through that, the only thing you have right now is faith, and no one can take that away, because faith is something you create for yourself. It's not something someone gives you.
Absolutely. I completely believe in that. All of this happened, by the way, to you within a 4-month period. And you mentioned that a lot of women can probably relate to your story right now, because we're all being hit in some way, shape, or form by COVID-19. How did you go from believing you could turn it around to actually making that happen?
Yeah. Well, my relationship with God then wasn't like it is now. Then I'm convicted now, but I was curious. And so I got down on my knees and I prayed to God, and I said, "If you will show me the way, I'll do the work." And it didn't happen overnight. I had to have a lot of faith and a lot of trust. And there were a series of things that happened coming out of that. So my best friend at the time, and he's passed now from cancer. But anyway, he said to me, he said, "Susan, this is what you need to do." And I was so exhausted. And how many women listening have decision fatigue? You just wish someone would show up in your life and tell you what to do, right? And so Ken said, "Here's what you should do. You should go to Toronto and get a job there, because all of your family is there." And he said, "Of course, I don't want you to leave, but this is what you should do." And I was I was so humiliated. My divorce was written about in the newspaper. It was awful. It was like the tabloids. And, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why I don't like tabloids. It's like that. I've been there. And so I said, okay, fine. So I went to Toronto. I slept on my brother-in-law's sofa. I was literally homeless. And I said, okay, I got to polish up my resume. I reached out to some of my clients who had been celebrities, and I just said, hey, I need letters of endorsement. The first job interview I went to, I put on my suit. I was shaking, because I hadn't had to apply for a job in years, but also because I was sick. And of course, I didn't tell anyone I had MS, Catherine. So, I go in and I do the interview. I do all my research, and I end up getting the job. Getting the job is the first step. Now you've got to prove yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I dug in. And I took a sales team. We had about 52 people in that sales team. And I took us to #1 in the entire country out of 444 locations. It was back in the days of Bally Total Fitness. So I took us to #1 and in 90 days. And no
Wow.
one had ever done that. And there were a lot of days where I was exhausted and literally slurring my speech, and I had to talk to clients and, motivate staff. But that's how it all began. And that summer, two things happened to me. One night, this is for all the single ladies out there, okay? The gal who, this is how good God is. I end up, Catherine, applying for this job and getting it. And the gal who had that position, she's moving into a lateral position. She said, "Hey, Susan, do you want my apartment? I'll just give you the first month rent. I'll just defer it. I'm, moving to a different apartment." So I literally get this gal's apartment, all her furniture right across the street from my job. Like, yeah.
I don't believe in coincidences, by the way.
No, that's God, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
what was happening is, as I was showing a little bit of faith, I get little miracles, and the more faith I showed. So one night I was finally ready to open my heart to a relationship, and I'm on my balcony and I start writing this letter. I'm like, "God, please send me a man who loves my daughter as his own, loves me, for who I am." The very next day, one of my staff calls in sick at 5 a.m, and I'm ready to lose my mind, Catherine. And back in those days, I had cut off all my hair. I was just like over it. I don't want to date. And so I have this ugly sweatshirt on and these old Danskin tights, not a stitch of makeup. And I go in and I'm stocking towels at this health club, and I'm mad at Kim, was her name. I'm like, ah. And anyway, at 5:30 a.m, in walks this man, and I knew him. We had gone to high school together. So we're now in a city of 7 million people. We'd grown up in a town of 20,000. I had a massive crush on him. To make a long story short, we've now been together 20 years. Our dads have gone to high school together, and he had everything on my list, everything that was important. So I believe when we express our faith, we're very clear, we're willing to do the work. It starts with small miracles, and then we get the bigger miracles.
Absolutely. We have to believe, we have to have faith, and there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. Such a beautiful story, Susan. Thank you for that. And speaking of stories, you have written several books.
Yes.
And one is called Organize Your Life, something we all need, especially now with the pandemic, leaving many of us feeling so much is out of our control. So for the woman whose business has suffered, as we mentioned, who's lost their job, who's working from home and juggling homeschooling, how do you begin to find that balance when life feels so out of balance?
Yeah. We have to control what we can control. And the following things we can control. We can control our health. We can control whether we, take 20 minutes in a day and stretch or breathe or pray or, whatever, if you are able, if you're listening or watching, you can go outside and get 20 minutes of fresh air or do jumping jacks in your apartment. There is a man, I've read about 3 men who've done whole marathons in their apartments. Two of them did them on their balcony, one in New York and
Really?
one in South Korea. Yeah, during COVID. And where there's a will, there's a way. So we control our health. We can control drinking water every day, getting a gallon of water. I come from a health background, so all of those things are important. We can control what time we go to bed. Those that are the things. And when we begin to control what we can control, starting with our health, that is the foundation for everything. And the next thing around organization is, what is that top priority? I love the other women in the field. I think Marie Kondo is doing amazing work. When I wrote Organize Your Life, it wasn't so much about organizing the sock drawer or cleaning up a closet. It was about a life of organization, what we said no to, the art of saying no. There's a whole chapter on that. How are we setting those loving boundaries? How do we prioritize without feeling selfish? And so if you have lost a job or your business is, going sideways, what is your priority right now? And everything else is not a priority. Do you know, Catherine, the word priority only became plural last century. It was never
Really?
priorities. The
Mm.
Latin is priore, and that means one. It only became plural in the 20th century. And we decided that suddenly we had all these priorities. So Vince Lombardi once said, gentlemen, this is a football, and your priority is faith. After that, it's family. And after that, it's football. And what kind of life would we lead now if we said, okay, your priority is faith, and then it's family, and then it's getting your resume done, or it's getting your business going. And we were literally able just to focus on one thing and not allow ourselves to be so distracted. What would we get accomplished, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're getting that right now for a lot of us. We are using this time to really prioritize and reconfigure, okay, what was important to me before all of this and what is important to me now? And for a lot of us, I think that has really shifted, and we're finding gratitude in the little things that we probably took for granted too often. So for the woman that's looking for maybe just a couple of tips to be more productive in this time when she is home for whatever reason, what would you suggest? You talked about health, you talked about decommitting. What about just sitting down and thinking to yourself, how can I create some clarity for myself, and what this time looks like for me now and what I want it to look like later on?
Yeah. I think that the big thing is, as women, asking ourselves. I was reading Diane von Furstenberg's biography, and
It's
something,
on my list.
yeah, so good. She asked herself, who is the woman that I've always wanted to be? And I would love to add to that, what if we took this time and asked ourselves, who is the woman that I've always wanted to be? And if I couldn't fail, what would I do to become her? As women, we often put up these roadblocks. I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too fat, my skin isn't the right color, I'm like, I'm a cancer survivor, I've got, whatever is going on, right? And our life shouldn't be our excuse, it should be our reason. And so personally, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that. And these things go in cycles, as you know. We had SARS in the recession. There was the tech bubble, there was 9/11. So if you look at the cycles, there every 9 to 12 years, we go through either some form of an epidemic, a crisis, a war, something. This isn't going to be the last time. The virus has mutated 30 times. You hear my dog in the background.
I do.
Yeah, dogs,
You
kids.
haven't heard mine, which is a surprise.
Maybe they'll start talking in a minute.
Yes.
But we go through these every 9 to 12 years. So ladies, we must understand this isn't the last time. And when we are in a place of what is going on right now, it's an opportunity to essentially be reborn. The body is completely regenerated every 7 years, cell to cell. And I'll borrow a page from my old health background. So our bodies are composed by 100 trillion cells. Every 7 years, we regenerate from our eyelashes to our elbows. The problem is, in our very toxic world, cells get mutated. And what we regenerate are mutated cells. That's what cancer is. It's a regeneration of a mutated cell. And as we age and we don't take care of ourselves, our body keeps regenerating mutated cells and we rapidly age. What if this time we could say it's a regeneration, but we don't want to regenerate any of the toxicity, the pain, the baggage we have? We want to choose to let that go. And releasing this idea that we have to continue to give purpose to our pain. Let this be a time of rebirth, a time of regeneration, a time of newness. So we ask ourselves that question. So in the people, I do free coaching to the people on my list for all side hustlers. And I've been saying to I don't do any personal coaching anymore, but to all of the people I coach, I say, listen, if you could achieve something coming out of this and not fail, what would it be? And so there are people right now. I have one gal who's launching a math business, Catherine. She loves math. loves it. When she talks about math, it might be like me talking about finding the greatest thing at to be continued, which is a luxury consignment store. So she's going on about algebra. So I'm helping her launch her online math business, and she wants to work with underprivileged youth to help them get ready for the ACTs. I mean, it's so noble. So she's using this time to do that. I have other friends and clients using this time to come out as a closer iteration of the woman they want to be. And that's what I would encourage everyone to do.
Well, and I think that is resilience, don't you think? Women are finding resilience in these challenging times. And I'm not just limiting this to women, but this is the Women's Eye podcast, so I do want to talk about women. How would you define resilience? What do you think the key is to resilience?
That's a great question. Eleanor Roosevelt always said, you don't know a woman is like a tea bag. You don't know how strong she is until you put her in hot water. Resilience and our ability to tolerate pain and challenge only comes from our experience in tolerating pain and challenge. So we see people handling this crisis who perhaps are in their late 40s and 50s who say, okay, I was an adult during 9/11. I was an adult during the recession. This has happened before. It doesn't make it easier, but I'm wiser and I can be resilient through this because I understand it will pass. Then we see younger people, perhaps in Gen Z and younger millennials, who are saying, oh my gosh, the world is ending. And there are people preaching that, the world is ending, the world is ending. Resilience is to say, okay, this too shall pass, and I'm going to become stronger and I'm going to become better for it. And I think women in general are very, very resilient. We have to be moms and to be daughters of aging parents and to do all the things we do in the world. And there are lots of people right now who are actually thriving because they are so resilient, and they were either prepared, they had savings, or they said, okay, well, I've gone through this before, so I know right now it's time to triple down on my efforts or quadruple down on my efforts. This isn't the time for resting. It's the time for really, really asserting myself so I can rest on the other side of this.
You sum that up so beautifully, and you provide something I think that is a very concrete way for people to sort of get that resiliency in check and really come up with a plan. And that is the free life planner that you provide on your website, which is a resource available for women that we are going to link on the womenseye.com for our listeners. If you could just briefly summarize how that can help women get things into perspective.
Absolutely. We often think so narrowly that we forget to think globally. And I'm sure, Catherine, you and I both know women who they're so focused on their kids that they let their health and their marriage go, right? And then the kids grow up and they're very empty. Or there are so many women who are focused on themselves and how they look that they're letting other things go, right? So the whole purpose of the life planner is this balanced life, to really think about your life expansively in all areas, your relationships, your money, your own personal health, what's important to you, to set goals, but not just to set them, to actually create the steps that are going to achieve them. So that's what the planner is. I'm excited for people to use it. And by all means, I'd love to hear from you on social, either Twitter, it's Susan_Sly, or on Instagram, it's at Susan Sly, at Facebook, it's at Susan Sly, at LinkedIn, it's at Susan Sly. So I'd love to hear from everyone how they're using it, because I think it's a great tool.
Well, you'll be hearing from me, that's for sure. Susan Sly, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Thank you for the sound and timely advice and strategies that we can all start implementing for personal and professional success. And I should mention, we have something in common. I've run the Boston Marathon 3 times, not 6, but 3. And it is a big feather in my cap. So congratulations for doing 6.
Thank you. Which years did you do?
2007, 2011, 2012.
I did all 3 of those too.
See, no coincidences.
We'll have
We
to,
were
you know,
bound, we were bound to connect at some point.
when we, after social distancing and everything's over, we'll get together and we'll bring the medals from those 3 races and we'll do like an epic Instagram photo, Catherine.
I would love that, Susan. I would love that. Thank you so much. And just a reminder to our listeners and viewers, you can learn more about Susan Sly by going to our website, thewomenseye.com. Also, The Women's Eye has a book. It's called 20 Women Changemakers. You can shop for it wherever you buy books and at changemakersbook.com. That's going to do it for this episode of the Women's Eye podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Catherine Anaya. Until next time, remember, it's the world as we see it.